until the U.S. Can come up with something that impacts the Houthis, and as I said, I have a hard time believing that they're going to actually be able to do that, then I don't think de-escalation is a path that's possible.
Now, yesterday, the Houthi leader, Abdel Malik al-Houthi, said any American attack will not remain without a response. The response will be greater than the attack that was carried out with 20 drones and a number of missiles. How seriously will the U.S. take this warning?
Well, I think the United States takes it quite seriously, and the fact that the Houthis have a variety of asymmetric ways to respond has restrained the U.S. and others from going directly after the source of the Houthi missile and drone firings. That's what of particular importance is the fact that the Houthis could, as they have in the past, respond against Saudi Arabia and the Saudi oil fields, which would be a further escalation of the entire conflict. So the Houthis have a lot of cards, asymmetric cards, that make it difficult for the U.S. And its allies to do anything substantive to prevent these attacks from occurring.
Both the US and Britain have been warning of a response over the past few days, in fact, week or so. Why do you think they've decided that tonight might be the night?
Well, I think the scale of the Houthi attacks and the fact that shipping continues to be restricted in the Gulf is of great concern. And once having committed to this task force, the U.S., the U.K., and the other sort of many of them unnamed allies who were there feel they need to get a return on their commitment. But it's going to be very difficult to do anything that affects the Houthis in any significant way.
Well, indeed, not least because there's been bombing in that country. Of course, Saudi was supporting the official recognized government, and then the Houthis were being supported by Iran, and the Houthis and the Saudi-supported administration seem to have fought themselves to a standstill and to a stalemate. There's a sort of ceasefire, but that might be destroyed by what comes tonight and in the coming days.
Very much a danger. And again, the impact would not just be on the shipping in the Gulf, but it could potentially be on Saudi Arabia and the Saudi Arabian oil fields, which would really move this thing to a whole other realm of conflicts. So this is a very careful balancing act that the U.S. and UK have to play. And as I said before, the Houthis have a lot of asymmetric responses that make this a challenge.
President Biden is expected to address the nation later tonight. What do you think he should say?
Well, he's going to have to explain why the U.S. is using military force in a place far from the U.S., in a place that doesn't, and you can argue, doesn't really immediately impact American security interest, because most of the traffic that's going through the Red Sea is actually headed to Europe. So there's a lot of skepticism in the U.S. about the use of military force in this area.
And do you think part of the reason that the Houthis and Iran feel so emboldened to continue these strikes and these interventions, despite the warning from Britain, America and others, that they don't take these Western countries seriously?
Well, the Western countries were de facto supporters of the Saudis. The Saudis tried very hard to defeat the Houthis and failed. And so from the Houthis' perspective, the indirect might of the United States was already brought against them once, and as you said, they fought to a standstill with the Saudis, who were fighting with American weapons. So the Houthis feel very emboldened right now, and there's anything that's going to impact them. It's hard to see what's going to seriously impact the Houthis.
The politicians here in this country, on the political left, are calling for de-escalation. What does de-escalation look like? Is it not possible without a response, first of all, and then pause to see what the Houthis and the Iranians do?
It's very difficult to see what de-escalation would look like because the U.S. and its allies have not escalated yet. They have been playing purely defense out in the Gulf. So until the U.S. Can come up with something that impacts the Houthis, and as I said, I have a hard time believing that they're going to actually be able to do that, then I don't think de-escalation is a path that's possible.
Quick question about the Defense Secretary, Lloyd Austin. There was talk of his health. He had an operation, didn't tell the White House, but the president is standing foursquare behind him. A bizarre episode, whichever way you look at it. What do you make of it?
It's quite strange. It's not consistent with the kind of openness and transparency the Biden administration had promised the U.S. Apparently, General Austin is a very private person, and that's run up against this promise of transparency. So far, the president has stood by him, but certainly both the Secretary of Defense personally and the institution of the Department of Defense has lost credibility and standing in the United States, not to mention outside.